It is an interesting question why so many people like the Aquatic Center in Beijing. I think like a good movie or a good artwork or a good book, it has to have several layers of meaning and possible interpretation. And it is a uniquely sort of Chinese traditional design in a certain way, because it's this blue box, this blue square that sits in a water mode. So somehow it refers back to the Forbidden City, to the Temple of Heaven and all these traditional Chinese architectural pieces. And at the same time it's a total high-tech design involving latest engineering techniques and sort of molecular science and soap bubble theory. So it strikes a chord on many different levels and layers. It was very popular with the Chinese population in particular, who sort of took it on as their own project in a way. It's sort of beyond the designers. In China, nobody talks about who designed it. Everybody speaks about the building and has become an icon. There's a telephone now made according to the Watercube design. There's books, there's jewelry. I saw on the internet this morning there's a swimsuit with the Watercube pattern. So it has sort of assumed its own life. It's beyond us now. Well, funnily, most of our projects receive attention. All our projects try to think outside the box. There's a traditional sort of understanding that architects design single-family homes. Or in Australia, actually, most of the homes are not even architecturally designed. Sort of there's this connection between architecture and sort of building, craftsmanship, do-it-yourself sort of thing. And our architecture tries to make more connections with the arts, with design, with film, with animation and philosophy, sort of with the outside world. And therefore, our architecture is probably very different from other people's architecture, or sort of your common notion of architecture. And we recently won the Interior Design Award in Melbourne, actually 2 days ago, for a project called the Future Hotel, which is a hotel room built as a research laboratory to test new technologies in hotel design, new technologies, new design features, and implement all these different features into one laboratory that can be tested. Reactions of visitors can be tested, people can sleep in there overnight, and things like rocking beds and interactive screen displays and temperature that reacts to body temperature and so on is researched there. The inspiration in our office often comes from nature, and the aim is not to imitate or mimic nature. The aim is to understand geometries and efficiencies in nature. When you think about a coral reef, for example, that has grown over hundreds of years, you can imagine that the structure of the coral reef is based on evolutionary principles of symbiosis of thousands of living creatures living in this reef and sort of living friendly with each other, and every element has its own role. And at the same time, the coral reef as a structure is exposed to wind and sun and currents, water of course, and to fish. And therefore it's extremely strong, extremely lightweight and extremely porous in a way. So what I'm saying is that nature designs very efficiently. We're trying to learn from these efficiencies without trying to duplicate nature. We create artificial environments, sort of coral reefs or organisms for mankind to inhabit. For the swimming center in Beijing, we used a facade material that comes from space industry, developed by NASA, which is an extremely lightweight thin film, 0.1%, or 1% of the weight of glass, 0.1 0.01 millimeter thickness, but with the same structural and thermal properties than glass. So it's a lightweight film that acts under inflation, can span up to 9 meters, so you can create gigantic panels of this material without any substructure. So again, the aim is efficiency, lightweight, less material for more space. Other materials that we use are textile meshes, essentially fabric, but high-tech versions of fabric. And we stretch these fabrics and twist them and pattern them in a similar way that shirts or fashion generally is made. And we create spaces with very little material by applying sort of mathematic surface rules to architecture. We like to work on very small scale projects and on very big scale projects. And one of the biggest projects we're currently working on is the design for a sustainable city in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. So we believe that urbanism in the last 50 years is pretty much a failure. And in particular, the newer the cities are, the worse they are, which should be the opposite. A city like Rome was actually built very reasonably, but newer cities, in particular in Asia and in the Middle East, have made a lot of mistakes, even worse than history has shown us. And the problems are, of course, pollution, traffic, completely no sensibility for emissions, for sustainability. And the city we're involved with is called Masdar City. Masdar, M-A-S-D-A-R, is an initiative by the Abu Dhabi government to create the city of the future. An entire city without any carbon footprint. It's entirely emission-free, it's car-free, and it's driven by a solar plant. So that's not like a solar cell on a parking meter, that's an entire field, dozens of soccer fields of solar panels that power the entire city. And instead of cars, there's a public transport system on 3 different layers, which is essentially little automated taxi cabins, which are again solar powered and magnetically driven, and driverless vehicles that get you around the entire city. And we just won an international design competition for the center of the city, sort of the central plaza of the city, which is a hotel and retail and conference center development with a big public square in the center of the city. And for us will be, we hope it will be the city center of the future.